but people would always ask me, I want to be able to eat dessert and still, eat it in a lightened up, healthy way. And so I would put a dessert on the site and it would do well. Or people would ask for a specific casserole dish and I'd do it my way and then put it on the site and it would do well. And so I really started to see a huge difference in the traffic I was getting once I just stopped focusing on what I wanted to make that week and actually be more strategic about what people are searching for and what people want to see.
That was Brandi Crawford, and this is episode number 159 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. I'm your host, and this is the Chopped Podcast. You know, this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. This podcast is about encouragement, interviews, tips, strategies, and lots of soul searching about what we're doing in this community of bloggers with a focus on food. May I call us food bloggers? I think I will. There's just so much that is involved with food blogging. I can't tell you how many times when people ask me what I do and I say I'm a food blogger and they say something like, ooh, sounds like fun. I oftentimes feel this kind of obligation to explain to them how hard it is. And then, you sound a little defensive when you get into that mode. So oftentimes I'll just go, yes, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, between us, we don't have to go into this with other people, but between us, we know there's a lot of work involved. And that's why I love reaching out and talking to other food bloggers and, just experts in the industry to talk about ways that we can, be better, continually grow. I definitely feel like, this is a form of entrepreneurialism for sure. And I totally believe that entrepreneurism is a modern day form of self-discovery, and all the things that you think you've, had been victorious about in your life, as far as, if you're fulfilled as an individual, I think all of those things get turned topsy-turvy a little bit when you go into something like this. I have found, for myself, for example, that working for others is great. I am so good at that, but working for myself is definitely challenging, and I have to, just put a little bit more emphasis on, some self-care and some things that really make a difference for me. So anyway, that's kind of what this podcast is about. It's about us figuring out together some things that really work and some things maybe that really don't, and then kind of helping each other through it. But before we get started, I just want to share with you a review of the week. This one is from Christina of the site Fork in the Road. Christina says, I am a food blogger who works full-time, and this podcast is a huge source of support and inspiration to keep me going. I love to listen to episodes while cooking and photographing my recipes. It's like a friendly support group while I'm plugging away at my dreams. Keep up the good work, Marley. Thank you, Christina, for your support of the show and for the amazing work that you're doing each and every day. We all need encouragement, don't we? If you would like to be a featured listener in a future episode, just leave a review of the Chopped Podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. Your encouragement really means the world. And speaking of encouragement, have you ever heard people say about food blogging in particular that it's too crowded, that it's impossible to make it? So why even try, especially for a new blogger? Well, I think you're going to love today's guest, Brandi Crawford, because she is proving otherwise. Brandi started her site Stay Snatched, and she's been seeing phenomenal growth since she started her blog. But before I go on, I just want to emphasize something to you. If you're not seeing this kind of tremendous growth like Brandi is, don't let today's episode be a source of discouragement. It's easy, so easy to sit back and think, she's doing this. How come I'm not? Is there something wrong with me? Maybe she's just better at this than I am. There's just so many ways to take this down the wrong path. Instead, I encourage you to look at Brandi and think, here's someone who's showing that you can still break through. You can find your niche and you can really succeed as a food blogger. It's just a perfect example of how, we can take something and use it, as a positive guide in our life. I loved talking with Brandi, and she talks about several things that have really pointed her towards her success. For example, she talks about the episode of the Chopped podcast where I interviewed Casey Marquis about search engine optimization, and I'm going to leave that link in the show notes page so that you can listen to that episode as well and learn the exact same things that Brandi did about SEO and how you can use that to guide the content that you create for your site. She also mentions that switching hosts was a big part of helping her increase her traffic. That's something that she learned about on that episode with Casey as well. She also mentions my interview with Kay Feather about being a part of the Mediavine advertising network, because being on an ad network was an important goal for Brandi. And once her traffic reached a certain milestone, which is 25,000 page views per month, which is a requirement of Mediavine, she was able to apply, and now she's got a regular source of income coming in through her blog. And that was a really important milestone for her. And it inspires me to know that she listened to that interview with Kay, and that was helpful for her in growing her audience and figuring out that milestone was important and achieving it. Another thing that really stuck with me was her devotion to studying her audience and creating more of the content that they really love. I think it's so easy to get distracted from our own audience. Do you ever feel that way? I definitely do. I mean, I do it all the time. I get on Pinterest and I see someone making, like a Snickers bar cheesecake with caramel drizzle. And I think, ooh, I could make a vegan version of that. And trust me, I totally could. I can really put my mind to it, and I could get obsessed and, really passionate about the challenge. And I love that kind of thing. But rather than spending all that time and creating something and forcing it on my audience and then spending lots of time marketing that recipe, which may not even really be something my audience wants, I could do a little bit of research first. And one thing I have learned is that my audience really loves easy recipes. So when I stick to that formula, things are just much easier. It's not to say that you can't choose a challenge from time to time. Step out on something that you just feel really passionate about. I just think it's about, understanding your audience and really trying to serve them. That's something that I think that was really a big part of Brandi's winning formula. I'm curious, after you listen to this, if that's what you get out of that as well. I was lucky enough to meet Brandi in person because, well, she lives here in Kansas City as well. And so we met at a local coffee shop, and I can tell you that she's just as fun and informative in person as she is in today's discussion. We definitely compared spreadsheets because Brandi comes from a background in finance, and so she spent a lot of time on spreadsheets. And let me tell you, we geeked out on spreadsheets quite a bit. I love a good spreadsheet. So I think you're going to find today's discussion inspiring, informative, and hopefully, like a touchstone for you to create your own goals and take your blog to the next level. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's featured discussion with Brandi Crawford. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Brandi Crawford. She's of the site Stay Snatched, and she's on the show today. Hey Brandi, welcome to the Chop Podcast.
Hi Marley, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. First of all, I'm glad that you reached out, and I think we're going to have a really great discussion about your site and how you've grown it so remarkably fast. And I'm sure you feel, you just got to be so proud of yourself for the accomplishment you have of growing your site so quickly.
Yes, I am. Sometimes it's just like surreal when I look at the numbers because I'm a Google Analytics stalker. And so I'm in there all of the time. And I feel like when I see certain recipes taking off and things happening so quickly, I still just look back in amazement. I can't believe it sometimes.
And what I love about this is that we're going to be able to talk about the differences for new bloggers versus, and I don't want to say the word old bloggers, but it's like people who've been at this at a while. I think for a while there's a difference, and you pointed out, and I think we can go into that a little bit more, and that'll be kind of exciting for people, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. I think it's a lot different today than it is last year, even 5 years ago and 10 years ago. The game is just so much different now. So
yeah. I also love the fact that you love spreadsheets.
Oh, yes. Every time I listen to your podcast and you talk about your spreadsheets and your percent done, I can relate to so many of those. And so I feel like I have a spreadsheet to track pretty much everything.
I'm just like all tingly. I just can't wait to get into that.
Yes.
Okay, but before we do that, I just want to ask you a couple things. Like, for example, okay, you have this background in finance, and then you started a food blog. Can you talk about that? Like, what made you do that?
So the food blogging kind of started as an outlet. My friends were asking me about recipes that I would cook. And so several years ago, I got into wanting to cook healthier. I felt like I was
Mm.
just crash dieting. Anytime a vacation came up or my birthday came around, I would go on these crash diets, but I wasn't really focused on a healthy lifestyle. So at one point I said I wanted this to be my everyday life and not just be, a couple of months out of the year life. And so I started working out more. I actually started following a couple of food blogs and cooking my own recipes and kind of meal prepping. And so people would see, because I share this on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and people would ask me about things like that. And I said, oh, what if I started a food blog? And so at the time, I was working at the company prior to the company that I'm working with now. And I was very bored there. I had told my
Mm.
manager, I'm not challenged. I need more projects. But he was kind of a work hoarder and he
Mm.
wouldn't throw things my way. And so I was like, well, I want to launch this blog. So maybe I'll spend some of my workday actually working on writing up some recipes. And
Sure.
so I legit was spending maybe 2 hours every day of real work at work. And the rest of the day, I'd be just writing up recipes of things that were my favorite foods. And so then I got to the point where on the weekends, I started shooting photos of all of these recipes. And then I started
Oh.
actually interviewing for other jobs because I really liked finance. I still wanted to stay there, but I knew that company wasn't maybe the best for me.
I mean, think how many people waste 2 hours a day, like they're talking at the, coffee pot or whatever. People waste a lot
Yeah,
of time at the
they
office. I'm
really do.
sorry, it's
And
true.
so
Yeah.
I spent that time that I could be wasting doing that by writing up recipes and stuff like that.
Exactly. And it's not as if you didn't put your case forward. You told your boss you wanted more to do
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah, we had
so
that conversation several times, and he would kind of throw things my way, but I'm just a very analytical thinker, and I would just kind of get through that stuff very quickly. And so I just decided I'm going to start a blog, and I kind of just had the mindset of this will be a way to share my recipes with the people that are asking for them, and maybe
yeah.
I'll get like free product. I didn't even think about making money or anything about it. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll
Yeah.
get some protein powder or something
Yes.
kind of out of this. And so I started blogging. And so I had maybe 30 recipes written up with
Mm.
photos before I actually launched my website. And so the day I launched my website, 2 days prior, I accepted an offer with the current company that I work for. And then I left my old one. And so there was like all of this new change coming into
Wow,
my
that's a
life. It's
lot.
like I have a new website that I'm so excited about. Then I have this new job where I'm actually going to be challenged and do the things that I like. And then I kind of worried about how I could manage both of those because a large part of me getting things up and running was having almost a full day to be able to
Yeah.
dedicate to everything. And I did everything on my own. I watched YouTube videos on how to actually create a site on WordPress. I didn't hire anyone to do anything on my site. So I did everything from scratch. It was hours and hours of
You mean you
Googling.
designed it yourself too?
Yes, I figured out a theme well, I don't even think I paid for the theme. Whatever I have on there now is just something that I learned from a forum or something. So I did
Wow.
all of that on my own and just started kind of keying the recipes in.
That's amazing. Do you think I'm just curious, do you think your background in finance helped you? I mean, I could see where, there's a certain level of meticulousness, I guess, hopefully that's a word, that is required in finance that could also, translate into being a good food blogger.
Yes and no. I do feel
Okay.
like I've never been that creative person. So in art class and all of things like that, I've always been terrible at that kind of stuff. But I have found that being an analytical thinker and, loving finance and stuff like that has really helped propel my growth and for me to be strategic about what I want to do and plan out things and time management as well. Like I hear a lot of food bloggers say they hate Google Analytics. I love it. I just
Uh,
love looking at all of the different things in there. And I definitely feel like Google Analytics has helped me see what's working and what's not working and respond to what's working and kind of do more of that.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so I have to ask you this question, and I'm almost a little bit embarrassed to ask you this because I feel like there's probably something I should know that I don't know, and like everybody else in this world that's listening right now knows it, and so I'm going to be very embarrassed. But what does "stay snatched" mean?
Oh no, I don't think that everyone knows it. So
Oh, good.
snatch is like it's a new age term and it kind of
Okay.
means like to look nice or fashionable. And so
Oh,
when I wanted to start the blog, I had thought about it like maybe in the spring or summer before I actually launched in November of 2016. And I had spent, I feel like months trying to come up with a name for the website. And I was talking
it's
to,
hard.
yeah, it's so
Yes.
hard. And I was talking to one of my close friends. I had a spreadsheet, of course, of a
Yes, of
running list
course.
of ideas of names because I essentially wanted to say, this is how you live a healthy lifestyle without crash dieting. And I didn't want
Ah,
the word skinny in the name because I don't think that skinny always means that you're healthy. I couldn't
yes.
find a way to say that and for it to be succinct. And so one of my friends and I, we had gone on a few trips that particular summer, and she was living on the East Coast at the time. And so we had these ideas for what we wanted to wear and how we wanted to look. And we couldn't go to the mall and go to the dressing room and try on stuff and say, how did this look? We would just kind of share photos. This is what I'm thinking of packing. This is what I want to wear. And we kept saying, oh, you look snatched in that, or you look like this. And so one day we were having this conversation about going on a trip and we kept saying that. And I said to her, I'm going to say stay snatched because I want people to know that the recipes that I'm putting out there, the fitness stuff that I'm putting out there is a lifestyle. It's not, I
I
don't want
love
people coming
it.
to my blog for crash
Yes.
dieting. I want it to be, this is how you live because I have unhealthy recipes on my website as well. I'll say unhealthy,
Sure.
but they're usually holiday recipes because I feel like
Yeah.
treat yourself during the holidays and you get right back into your routine of, eating healthy, meal prepping and stuff like that.
Well, and then, actually that kind of goes to the whole heart of the issue. I just feel like, like let's say you're newly in love with somebody, you are staying snatched,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like you're just like, there's just like no temptations around. And how do we maintain that when we're, how do we be in love with ourselves, I guess is what it comes down
Exactly. If
to.
you're not focusing on the bigger
Yeah.
picture type of thing.
Ah,
Yes.
I love that. Okay. I'm so glad I asked that question then
No,
because I wasn't sure what that
people
meant.
ask me that all of the time. And so I'm always thrilled to kind of tell that story because I feel like there's a story behind it and people love a good story. So,
Yes, and I feel you too because I try to dance that, between having healthy versus unhealthy. It's like if you have a reputation of doing healthy recipes, is it okay to do some recipes that are not so healthy? And I agree with you. I think you got to have the indulgences.
exactly. And I don't feel like, and maybe there are, and I just don't know about them, but there weren't a lot of food blogs out there kind of promoting that. Everyone kind of felt, it looked like to me, you have to be on like a straight and narrow and you have to be
Yeah.
healthy every single day. And I kind of wanted my niche to be, this is my life every single day. And you can kind of see, oh, I might have a burger and fries this day. Oh, but I'm back into prepping for the week and eating like salmon and vegetables or something like that. And so I wanted to be really authentic.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so let's go back to this time frame where you started the site, you're building it yourself. At the same time, you're starting a new job, which everybody knows is very challenging because,
Yeah.
you have to learn, just everything, the way that company works and your new projects, things like that. I mean, I'm sure you felt very overwhelmed, huh?
I did, but I think I'm just one of those people who works well when they have a lot on their plate. And so I feel
Mm,
like that's probably another reason why I can manage, working a regular job in corporate America and then coming home every day and working on my website because I just love having a lot of things to do. And that goes back to like my story about leaving my old job. I didn't have a lot to do and that drove me crazy.
oh,
And so I did
yeah.
like the challenge of both. There was a little bit of fear coming into my role now because of it's a Fortune 10 company. So the expectations of everyone who works there are really big. And so I was afraid that I'd be working a lot of long hours and it would take away from the time that I spend, on weeknights or even on the weekends working on Stay Snatched. But it actually hasn't been that way. I've been able to, through spreadsheets and modeling, kind of automate a lot of the things that we work on. It's a company that's been around forever. And so the person who I replaced was retiring. And so there was a lot of room for process improvement. And so I've done a lot of that there. And so I can do a lot of my tasks quickly, but still be challenged. So I'm definitely not, I don't have the same situation at my old job where I was only working 2 hours a day. I definitely still have a pretty full plate, but it's not something that requires me to work long hours or take away from my work life balance. And that's what I love about it the most. I wanted a job where I could be challenged, but still have a great work life balance. And I have
That's
that.
cool. And so you started the site though, kind of thinking it was, really more about getting free product and not realizing what you could do with it. And then you experienced some huge growth. I mean, you mentioned that within 11 months, you were getting 100,000 page views per month.
Yes. And it's so funny I say I was started it for free product because now I cringe when I think about if someone
I
wants me to
know.
work with them for free product because
Yeah.
it's not something that I like to do. But within a month, I think I had discovered how great Pinterest could be. And so
Mm.
I felt like I was on Pinterest every single day, and I discovered group boards as well. So I'm on Pinterest every single day, manually pinning to my boards, to group boards, and it was taking so much time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I see how valuable this can be, but it's just taking me too long. And somehow I learned about Tailwind. And so I signed up for the free trial with Tailwind. And I think 2 days into that free trial, I was like, I need to just buy this. Like, if I bought
Yeah.
this, it would take away so much of the time that I'm spending just manually getting on Pinterest. And so I purchased Tailwind. And then within maybe another month, so 2 or 3 months in, I had a pin go viral, and it was for these wine gummy bears. And so I was getting like 5,000 views a day, and I couldn't believe it. Like when I first launched
Wow.
my site, I would get like 20 views a day. And so again, being in Google Analytics on a regular basis, I could see how this pin was taking off. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this Pinterest thing, there's really something to this. And so I really honed in on Pinterest, started trying to create beautiful pins, and focused my attention there. And then the other thing that I noticed within, a few more months was kind of noticing what my audience wanted. I think when I first launched my blog, I was so focused on just what am I cooking for the week? I'm going to take some pictures of it. I'm going to write a recipe and put it on the blog. I was really focused on what I wanted to eat and not really what other people were searching for, what other people wanted to see on Pinterest, or even the loyal following that I did have, which was super small, what they wanted to see. And so people would email me or direct message me on social media, and they would request recipes. And so I would do those recipes. Like, one thing I'm not huge on is dessert. I've just never been a huge dessert person, but people would always ask me. I want to be able to eat dessert and still, eat it in a lightened up, healthy way. And so I would put a dessert on the site and it would do well. Or people would ask for a specific casserole dish, and I'd do it my way and then put it on the site and it would do well. And so I really started to see a huge difference in the traffic I was getting once I just stopped focusing on what I wanted to make that week and actually be more strategic about what people are searching for and what people want to see.
And did you use Google Analytics to help you determine what it is that people wanted? I mean, what was it that really helped you hone in on your audience?
Um, Not really surveys, but just the feedback that I was getting, and then just
Okay.
kind of seeing what's doing well. I had been on the fence about. I have a lot of Instant Pot recipes that do well now, and so I had been on the fence for a long time about getting one. Skinny Taste, Gina, she was
Yes.
one of the people that I went before I became a blogger years and years ago when I was just starting to eat healthy. I would look at her blog religiously, and so I was following her on Snapchat last year, and she was always using this Instant Pot. And I'm like, what is this thing? And then I'm like, the Instant Pot, this sounds like something that would be great for my niche, being quick and easy, healthy
Yeah.
recipes. And so I purchased the Instant Pot, put a few Instant Pot recipes on the blog, and they just took off. Like, I don't want to say viral, but I was getting a lot more traffic from those recipes than a lot of my other ones. And so I'm like, maybe there's something to this Instant Pot stuff. And so then I started doing video for Instant Pots, and the videos would just do amazing. And my first videos were terrible. Like, when I go back and look at them, they are so bad. But it's funny, a lot of my early videos do better than like a video I posted last week. Like, they just got so many views, so much traffic. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. And this video is horrible. The lighting's
It's hard to
terrible.
tell if that's because videos were so new or is it because people really like the reel?
Right. I don't know. And it may go back to like we were talking earlier about people not noticing the things that we notice. People may see
Yeah.
that video and be like, oh, this looks like my kitchen. So this just looks fine.
Yes.
And so that they find it more relatable. But so like the Instant Pot, that was one area. Once I saw that, put a couple of recipes out there, they did great. Let me do more Instant Pot recipes. And so I started doing more Instant Pot recipes, and they started doing well.
Oh, that's great. And how often do you end up posting on your site then?
I post last year, I would say 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
And now I'm more so 2 times a week.
Because you got that new job, right?
It's the job and it's also video. Like I've been trying to do a video
Oh,
for every recipe just to get a good backlog of videos out there. And then I think it also helps people see how quick and easy my recipes are. Like there isn't a lot to it. They're not really challenging. And so I've just really become obsessed with doing videos. And so
yes.
doing the videos has really made me be like, okay, I probably need to drop down to 2 times a week instead of doing 3 times
I
a
see.
week.
As you're kind of backfilling your old content with video content as well.
Yes.
I see. And so do you think that's I mean, like you mentioned getting, going to at 11 months, you were getting 100,000 page views a month. But then you told me that between 11 months and 14 months, you jumped up from 100,000 page views a month to 375,000 page views per month.
Yes, it's
Do you think
crazy.
that's because of video?
No, I think like I have one recipe on my site. It does not have a video for it. It's a 10-minute steak tacos recipe. And I just get so much traffic from like I get a lot of traffic from probably my top 10 to 15 recipes every single day. But this
Mhm.
particular recipe, I get a ton of views from it, and there's no video there. I think a lot of it is just really the high niche recipes like the instant pot recipes. I have some air fryer recipes, and that seems to be kind of going crazy on Pinterest and even Google. And then I've got a breakfast casserole recipe that kind of goes crazy. So I really can't nail it down to one particular because I don't even think that it's the video. My video traffic comes from Facebook. And if
Oh,
I look at
yes.
January, Facebook was only 5% of my traffic that month. So it's not
Wow.
just the video.
Yes. So you can you put a finger on what you think has really been your secret, or it sounds like you've maybe got a multi-pronged approach.
SEO for sure.
Yes.
I listened to your podcast with Casey last year.
He's awesome.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so
Yes.
once I listened to that episode at least 2 or 3 times, by the
I
way.
know there was so much in it. Yeah.
There was so much. And I remember you giving a disclaimer saying, okay, this is going to be a lot to take in. And I started listening. I'm like, oh, this is a lot. So I was taking notes and I was maybe doing some other stuff, like probably editing photos or something like that at the same
Yes.
time. And I just couldn't multitask and listen to that podcast at the same time in order to glean what I wanted to glean. And so I listened to it a couple of different times. I took notes and then I noticed how active he is in Facebook groups. And so
Yep.
I searched his name to see every single post that he has said something on in those groups to make sure that I was doing those things. And so one of the things that he talks a lot about is hosting. And when I first started my site, I was with Bluehost and my site would crash and my site was so slow. And when I finally switched hosts, this is actually, I think was my defining moment of getting really good traffic. I'll say switching hosts. In August, I believe it was July or August. So I was maybe 10 months in, 8 or 9, 10 months in, however many
Yeah.
that is. And I switched hosts. And this was on a Thursday or Friday when my new site was live on the new host. Within less than a week, I was starting to see a lot more traffic. And then 2 weeks later, I was actually starting to see more traffic from Google. And so once I had the new host, I took a list of recipes and I went into the search console of Google Analytics and I did a recrawl on each of those because I kind of wanted to prove to Google my site is fast now. I need you to
Yes.
recrawl. So I did the crawl and fetch, made it recrawl, and within 2 weeks, I was getting more and more search traffic from Google. And so one of my goals that I had was to be able to join an ad network. And so you had Kay on your podcast last year as well, and she was
Uh-huh.
talking about Facebook groups and Mediavine,
Yes.
how much she loved Mediavine. And I was like, what is this Mediavine? And so I was listening to her. So I go to their website and I'm like, you have to have 25,000 visits a year. And I was like, oh my gosh, not a year, a month. Like, how can I get 25,000 visits in a month? And so I was working and working, trying to get to the 25,000 visits just to be able to make more dependable
Yeah.
money every month from my blog. And so after I switched hosts that same month in August is when I was able to qualify for Mediavine. I had 25,000 hosts. So I think that changed as well. And so I kind of want to kick myself for those months when I didn't have a reliable host because I always wonder how much
Oh,
traffic could I have been getting if
yeah.
my site had been faster? How many people couldn't get to my site because maybe they got an error message, or how many people just left my site before it loaded because it was loading so slow? And so I always wonder if that was one of the problems too.
Do you mind sharing what host that you're on using now?
Yeah, WPOPT.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely one
Charles,
that Casey recommends.
yes, he recommends it a lot. And I saw it a lot in Facebook groups. I just did a search of their name and I couldn't find one bad thing that anyone had to say. And he did everything to switch my site over. Like, I feel like I didn't do anything. Like, I just provided him some numbers and I can't even tell you what any of that stuff means from my old host. And within a
Yeah.
day, he had turned it around and had done it within a day. And when I wanted
Wow.
to switch to a secured site, because Google was kind of telling
Yep.
if you don't do this by October or whatever the deadline was,
Uh-huh.
I just reached out to him and say, I want to do this. And he just did it. Like, I can't, I'm so thankful that I chose that host. I didn't have any issues. I didn't have to do anything on my own. And then it was just like magic, like more and more traffic started to come in just by switching hosts.
You know what I love about this story, though, is that you were constantly on the search for ways to improve, even though you were doing great things and you were, happy that you were getting traffic. You were constantly on the search for how you could make things better, and not just, for your site, but also for your audience. I think that's so important.
Exactly. And I think that a lot for some people that may be overwhelming, but that's kind of just how my mind thinks. And I think that
Yeah.
kind of just goes back to working in finance, and I work in cost analysis and data analysis. And we always have to kind of come up with new cost cutting metrics or ways, we can deliver more. And so I feel like I'm always looking for that, even with my
Yes.
website. And so it works out really well.
Now, Casey also talked about keyword research. Do you do that as far as SEO is concerned?
I do. And I haven't purchased SEMrush or anything, but the way I do it is I go into Pinterest and I'll type, for example, I just did over the weekend homemade Pop Tarts. And so I'll type in homemade Pop Tarts and kind of see what Pinterest suggests underneath what you type in. And a lot of times it'll say easy, or one time I'll see something that'll say like the number of minutes. And so I'll make sure that my recipe includes easy whatever, and then the number of minutes in it. And so
Like
that's
your
usually,
10-minute tacos
yes,
things? Yeah.
exactly. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why that recipe gets a lot of traffic too, because people, when I go into my search console and I see what people are searching for, I'm getting hits on that recipe for all kinds of things. Like, it's tacos, but I'll get hits on it for fajitas, and I'll get hits on it from just being an Instant Pot recipe, or it just being a steak recipe, or carne asada. There's just like so many different variations that people are coming in. And I really utilize the meta description as well to kind of capture all of that too.
The meta description on the post itself?
Yes. And
Yes.
for my Pinterest description, I often use the exact same thing that I post in the post for the meta description, and I add hashtags to it.
Now, do you use, like I'm using social warfare right now to create my Pinterest post. Is that what you're using?
Yep. I upload a photo into the bottom of
Yep.
social warfare, and I copy and paste that description in there and add the hashtags. And I also have the setting checked to where if someone wants to pin from my site, it will only allow them to pin my long pin photo that I've set up.
I know this is going to get technical for people, but one of the reasons I do the same thing you're doing. And the reason I love that is because, well, I'm having to go through my old photos and I had been using the alt tag as the Pinterest description. And now I have to go through and fix all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just use social warfare, which has a description. And I can use that and then let the alt tag stay, for
What it
people who
should
are
be.
visually impaired.
Yes. And so I have that too. And so I have a spreadsheet that I've started with having to go back and update all of my alt tags, because Yoast will make you think that your alt tag should be what your keyword description is. But now
Yes.
Casey and everyone else is saying, no, this is for visually impaired people.
Yep.
It should say, these are chicken thighs in a blue bowl on a white surface. And so
I wish Yoast could fix that.
yes. If they had told us that, we would all be doing that. And so
Right.
every single post on my site needs to be updated,
Yep.
except for the ones that once I learned that, I started fixing that. And
So you created a spreadsheet to help you track that, have my alt tags been fixed on all these old posts?
Yes, because I have a running spreadsheet of just SEO in general. So after I listened to like your podcast with Casey, and then just learning more from Casey as he kind of puts more out there, I have a plugin called All URLs or something. I can get the exact name of it if you want to
Sure.
link to it. But I downloaded every single URL on my site. And so I have a column that says, is
Yep.
this updated for SEO in terms of the amount of words that I need? Because when I first started blogging, I wasn't writing enough content in there. I would maybe write a paragraph. I include all of the nutritional information on each of my recipes, and then I'd have the photos and the recipe. I didn't really have a story for every
Yes.
single recipe. And so
Yeah.
things like that needed to be updated. And then I'll have a column for, is this keyword optimized? And so I was going back, going into Pinterest, doing my keyword research, and actually changing the titles of posts, updating meta descriptions and things like that. So I had a column for whether that was done or not. Then I had a column for, does this photo need to be, or do a reshoot on this photo? Are these photos terrible and I need to update them now because
Yeah.
I'm better at photography now, or in lighting and stuff like that. And so I just kind of have a running list of all of my posts with different columns of things that need to be done.
See, as you're going through that, I'm actually ticking off my spreadsheet as well, has the same columns in it.
Nice.
Yes.
See, great minds think alike.
Yeah, exactly. I love that because it's so challenging to, like I can easily feel like I'm just flailing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but if I have a process, I'm following that. I'm like, okay,
Exactly. And I can
I
check
may have a
things
few
off.
minutes here so I can go through and update some alt tags or things like that.
Yes, exactly. Because I feel like once I hear about something like that, my stomach just sinks to the floor like, oh my gosh, I need to go back and update all of this. And if I don't have a way of tracking it, I'm either never going to do it or everything's not going to get done. I'm just going to do a couple and it'll just fall by the wayside and I'll never get everything done.
Yes, I think spreadsheets are so important, and I just created formulas then so that as I get that column done, it tells me what percent done I'm overall. So that
Yeah.
it just, I don't know why, it just helps me to okay, I got 30% done. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like it just,
yeah. I have conditional formatting on mine because
oh, that works
red
too.
means that it's not done. And so if red gives me anxiety. And so if I go in there and I see that half the spreadsheet is red, I want to get it to green. And then when it's done, it'll turn green. And so
Yeah.
that makes me feel better.
See, I'm using conditional formatting in my, I mean, I have this other spreadsheet that I use I really kind of use it as content planning. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning out my content and I also have a percent done on it as well. But it, like, let's say I've already got my recipes done for February. So I'm already moving on to March and what content do I want to have in March? And some of it's old, some of it's new. Like it's old, I got to reshoot it,
Yes.
but I still have to update the post. I have to do all these things. And so I just track those columns,
Mm-hmm.
but then as I, get things done, the conditional formatting changes. I don't know. I just love it.
Yes. Same. And I want to get better at like planning out content and editorial calendar this year because I have a spreadsheet of every idea. Anytime an idea pops in my head for a recipe, I add it to the spreadsheet. And I want to
Yeah.
start planning those out, but I never stick to it. Like just this last weekend, I was going to do a donuts recipe. And then these Pop Tarts just randomly popped into my mind that I wanted to try on like Thursday. I saw someone at work eating Pop Tarts and I was like, man, those would be so much better if you made your own. So then I'm
Yeah.
like, has anyone made their own? And so then I'm like searching to see, because I like to search before I do a recipe to see if anybody's done it. Because if they
Yes.
have, to see who the competition is, if I can
Yes.
rank on this or not. And if they have, hopefully their photos are crappy and I could just make mine so much better, stuff like that. And so so that those donuts are still on the list to make, but I didn't make them this weekend. And so I want to be able to just focus in on what I'm going to do and kind of just stick to it. But we'll see if that actually happens. I just feel like I'm always all over the place.
See, I do that too, but what I have is I have a spreadsheet in the front and then I have a spreadsheet for each month. You know how you can have different tabs so I have a tab at the front that I just kind of throw all my ideas there.
Yeah.
And then once I decide for sure, I move, like let's say it's spring. So I'm kind of focusing on spring recipes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of move things around. And what gives me anxiety is because I want to do everything today. It's like,
Yes. Oh
I
my
like all these
gosh.
recipes. I want to do them all today, but I have to be, it
Yes.
kind of disappoints me to know that I'm going to do like 12 recipes in February and that's it,
Yeah.
and then I have to,
Yes.
I have to
I
wait to do
struggle
that
with
other.
that so much. And it's even harder for me because I pretty much only have the weekends to do
Oh,
most of
yes.
my recipes. And so I'll have all these ideas. Like just this past weekend, in addition to those Pop Tarts, I wanted to get holiday recipes done. I wanted to get one St. Patrick's recipe done
Yep.
in my Easter stuff because one of the other things that I found is the bigger bloggers or the people who've been around for a long time, they can post an Easter recipe on their site the week before Easter and it'll do well. They have an email list with a lot of people. They have a
Uh-huh.
Facebook page with 1 million people following it. I can't. I need to get my recipe in Google's SEO queue and in Pinterest. I try to shoot for at least 4 to 6 weeks in advance so that by that time, when someone searches for my recipe, it's actually there. And so I saw a lot of success for that around the holidays. I did a cranberry sauce recipe and I did the actual recipe maybe early October and I did a video for it, but I did not post the video. But I posted the website post on my site and I posted it to Pinterest. I added it to all my tribes, to my group boards, and then I put it in my queue to continue to kind of pin to those group boards throughout the month. And then the day after Halloween, November 1st, I posted the video on Facebook because people were done with Halloween and I was hoping they'd be in full fledged ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so the video did really well on Facebook. And within a week, it was starting to show up on Google page one. And then it started to do really well on Pinterest. And so I said, if I can get my stuff out there, almost 2 months in advance, it'll get some juice going and it'll actually do good.
That's so smart. In other words, it's like it's almost better to have that content out there early. It's like, it's like the grocery stores. That's what they do too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm already starting to see swimsuits and stuff at Costco and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Please wait.
I would love for it to be that right now, but it's not. It's still pretty cold outside. But
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I found that I'm really good at scheduling the seasonal holiday stuff really early and actually sticking to that. And so this past weekend is when I did those recipes, and I'm hoping that, crossing my fingers, next month when all that stuff starts to get big, that I can maybe see some traffic from that.
So it sounds like, let me see if I can say this right. It sounds like you're preparing content early as far as where it gets published on your site and it's, for the season. So like, you're publishing that cranberry recipe in October, but what about actually, do you have an editorial calendar that helps you plan? Do you have content ready for like a month out or do you just wing it kind of week by week?
In terms of, do I have things written?
Yes.
No.
Or at
And
least
so,
shot and ready to go.
no. I have a list of what I can make this weekend for next week, but if I needed to post something for next week, I don't have anything in my queue. And that makes me nervous because I've heard you say that you have stuff, and I've heard another food blogger that I listen to their podcast say that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have that because as soon as have something ready, I hit publish. And so I just
Yeah.
can't wait to get it out the door. I don't really save anything to post later. I just post it as soon as it's done.
Well, I mean, there's pros and cons. I do think, like you mentioned, there is opportunity. You can kind of follow your passions a little bit when when you don't have this content that's all scheduled out.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, for me personally, I really like this having the content already. Like I've already got a month's worth of content. I just have to write it. I leave the writing for the last minute, but I do all the the recipe testing and the shooting and all that stuff. I do ahead of time.
Yes, and I would love to do that. And yeah, you've mentioned your process on a few podcasts about how you
Yes.
shoot everything in a week now, you said, right?
I have recipe week and actually feels a little stressful. I'll be honest. I actually hate food blogging at the end of that week.
I bet. Yeah, I did 4 recipes this past weekend, and 2 of those were videos. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And so I do need to write up 2 of those. And so I guess I kind of do have that.
Yeah, you do.
But I plan on probably writing them up tomorrow and posting them tomorrow. So.
Yeah, and I should confess that I'm not doing a lot of video. I'm just torn. There's a part of me that just is resisting it, but I think I just have so much going on that it's really hard for me to throw that into.
Yes, it can be a lot. I do feel like right now I just have a really good gel and a good process going on. So that's
Yes.
made it a little easier, but it can be stressful. And just think in general with starting my blog in the last year, I haven't really cooked without having food blogging in mind.
Yes.
So the last 2 weeks, I've been just coming home from work on a weeknight and actually cooking something that may already be on my site or maybe not, without the intention of putting it up on my blog. And that's sometimes what I feel like if I'm making a recipe without video feels like. Even if I'm going to take a photo of it and put it on the blog, the pressure of not having it on video just feels completely different and it feels a little better.
But do you find yourself when you're cooking kind of thinking like, okay, this is what I would do if I was shooting?
Yes,
If I was doing
exactly.
video, I'd have to do this first. Or yeah.
Yes, like, and I can't tell you, there's been at least 3 times where haven't pressed record, and I've done like 2 minutes worth of
Oh
work. The
no.
cranberry
So in other
recipe
words,
I
you're
just
like,
mentioned, I did
you're
that.
moving forward and you're not realizing that you haven't pushed record.
Yes. So the
Oh,
cranberry recipe, I had thrown the cranberries in the pot, and I had added the honey. And so I just pretty much had to rinse the cranberries off
and start
and,
over.
and add the honey again. Thankfully, it was that minor, but I just couldn't believe that. Like, and part of that is just I'm so excited to get going. And I'm also sometimes rushed. I feel like since I only have the weekends and I have this small window of time, especially during daylight savings time, it's so hard if you're a natural light food
Oh,
blogger. I feel
right.
like you're just time is always constrained. So
So let's talk about that. So you really, it seems to me like the niche on your site is that you're talking about how you work a full-time job and you can find time for cooking,
mhm.
healthy cooking. Do you see yourself as eventually wanting to do this full time, or do you love the idea that you have both?
That's a great question. I get that question a lot, actually. Right now, and I actually think for the very in the future, I think I want both. I
Yeah.
just feel like I have one of those jobs that's kind of rare. A lot of people who have corporate jobs, they don't like to go to work every day, and they just don't like what they're doing. They want this own their own business type mentality. And I actually have a job that I like, and it's flexible. We have like a gym on site. The benefits are really good. And so I just can't see myself leaving that, especially when I feel like I have a great balance. And
Yeah.
I work a lot on my website and working a corporate job, but I still have fun. Like one day a week, I make sure I go out with friends and I do something fun and I still travel. And so I feel like I'm doing everything that I want to do, even if I didn't have the blog. And so right now, I don't have plans to transition to it full time because I feel like I know how to manage them both.
Well, and Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in her book, Big Magic, the importance of not putting too much pressure on your art. And in some ways, I can see where having a full-time job lets you pursue this as a passion project. And maybe you're a tad more authentic as a result because you're not putting that, there's no desperation in it.
I agree. And I think one of the things that makes me want to have both is just kind of having that financial mindset of conservative spending and making sure that I know every month what I'm going to bring in. And I do feel like I've noticed that food blogging is very lucrative, but I don't want to be confined to having to do sponsored posts every month and
Yes.
things like that because I'm just at the point now where I feel like my ad revenue is pretty good. My traffic is growing. And so that's good enough for me. I'm not
Yeah.
against sponsored posts and I've done them. But if I do sponsor posts at this point, I want it to be a long term relationship with the brand instead of it being kind of like a one and done thing. There's just so
Yes.
much work that goes into sponsored posts that you put on your blog. It's
Yes.
just so much. And so, yeah.
I think that's a good point because sponsored posts are a great example of where you could easily, if you're feeling this sense of desperateness about your income, you could easily take on a sponsored post that doesn't really resonate with your audience.
Exactly.
And you can be really picky and you can make sure you could just be like, I don't know. I don't want to work with you. Send me free product.
Exactly.
I don't want to work with you.
And that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah.
I like the sponsored Instagram campaigns because I feel like those can be
Yes.
lucrative and they're a lot less work. Like I may spend
Yes.
10 minutes taking a photo of a product that I really love, but I'm not
Yeah.
spending the hours also writing a blog post about it. I'm kind of writing a caption about it. I may do a story about it. And it's something that I'm authentic about that I love, but it's so much less work. And so those are the type of campaigns that I like now, but I'm not against sponsor posts. But if it's a long term
Yes.
relationship, that's kind of where I would, more so like it to come in.
I love that. So would you look at I'm not asking for you to give numbers, but you would say that probably the majority of your revenue then, the model that you have set up for the business side of your food blog is basically it's ad revenue.
Yes. Yep. Mediavine, love those guys.
I know I'm with Mediavine as well. I love them too. It's just, it really makes it so much easier. I felt like I don't know, advertising was another thing that food bloggers had to like know before these companies like Mediavine and AdThrive came along. It's very complicated advertising is.
It is. And so I just feel like I learned so much and just engaging with the people that work there and then in their Facebook group and things like that. And so they've been incredibly helpful. And so I love their approach. The same with switching hosts. When I wanted to sign up for Mediavine, they did everything. They put the ads on my site. I have
Yes.
control of things I don't want, certain
Right.
ads I don't want on my site, and the placement of certain things. And I just felt like it was very hands off. And that's exactly what I need.
I love that too. So you mentioned earlier that you think there are some maybe additional hurdles for new bloggers to be successful. Can you talk about that?
Yes. One of the things I feel like whenever a blogger who's been doing it for a long time comes along, you just see how there wasn't a lot of competition when they started. And so I feel like food blogging is very saturated now. Like you
Yeah.
definitely have to prove yourself in how you stand out from the rest. And so I feel like that's the first hurdle is how are you going to define your niche and actually hone in on the people that you want to see your content and then deliver that content to them. And then the second hurdle I would say is just the social media hurdle. Like I think that sites like Instagram are different today than they were 18 months ago, let alone, 3 years ago, or however they were when Instagram first came about. And so one of the things that I would find myself like you would see these bloggers and they have like 1 million followers on Instagram. And it's so hard to get followers on Instagram these days, especially if you have a business account. And so I think
Mhm.
they're just so much different. And I feel like that's how a lot of people get exposure to your content is through social media. And if you can't grow it the same way today that you could 4 or 5 years ago, it can be a little discouraging at
It's a
times.
little bit of a conundrum, isn't it? Because with the business account on Instagram, you get the analytics, which is really great. But like you say, it is a little bit harder to grow.
It is. Yep. So it's like a double-edged sword. Like, oh, I want the analytics. But then I also feel like if you switched back and forth, Instagram already knows you were a business account, so you still wouldn't get the same of juice as a personal account because they kind of already know anyway. And so I feel like you'd probably have to start over if that's what you wanted to do. But
Yeah.
I've just tried to not be consumed with it, especially because I see how through Pinterest or through Google you can get a lot of attention elsewhere. And a lot of brands kind of just want to see what your engagement is and how people are engaging with you on all of the platforms and not just one or two. Like I do a lot of sponsored Instagram campaigns and I'm not a huge I don't have a huge Instagram following, but I can deliver the photos that they want to see and I can get the
Yeah.
engagement that they want on a post. And so brands will want to work with me.
Do the brands reach out to you, or do you reach out to them to have those sponsored posts?
So a few different ways. Brands reach out to me. I've reached out to some brands that I like and love, and I'll get a
Yeah.
response. And then I've done some network work as well, specific to Instagram through a
Nice.
agency network.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So if you heard somebody say that the food blogging market is already too saturated, what would you, I mean, you just said that a few minutes ago, but yet you started your food blog in this saturated market and you've grown it and you're doing very well. And so I'm just curious what you say to somebody who says, I can't start a food blog, it's too saturated.
You have to figure out a way to make your work stand out and
Yeah.
hone in on your audience. And I feel like it's very cliche to say because I feel like everybody's piece of advice to a new food blogger is find out what your niche is. But I really think it needs to be super specific. And so I think when I first started, I just had in mind that I wanted to target people who are into fitness and who wanted to meal prep. But since then, I've honed in on I want people who want to meal prep and who don't have time to meal prep. And so a lot of my recipes are things that you can make in less than 30 minutes. And so when I'm on Instagram, on my stories, or even when I used to use Snapchat, people would see I'm cooking up all of my meals for the week and then I'm leaving for the day and I'm going to brunch and I'm going to go to the movies after that. So you could see how I was really living my life. And these recipes are really quick and easy recipes that taste good as well, because that was another thing that made me want to start my own blog was because I would go to Instagram and look for healthy recipes and everything would be just this bland chicken breast and broccoli and sweet potatoes. Everybody was doing the same thing. And it
Yeah.
didn't look like things that if I wanted to dedicate myself to being healthy and making it a lifestyle decision, it needs to be something that I am excited to eat every single day. And so that was another thing that I feel like kind of makes me stand out, is because the recipes that I'm making, they're healthy, but it's a healthy spin to it. Oh, and it's only going to take me 30 minutes to make.
Yeah. Another thing I like about your story is sometimes I get so tired of people who want to talk about, recipes on how you can lose weight. And it's fairly obvious that they've never had a problem with their weight.
Yes. Yes. That can be very frustrating for a lot
Yes.
of people because it doesn't make them relatable.
Right. Exactly. So you're very relatable and authentic. I think that's just really exciting.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I love to ask these fun questions at the end of the interview. Are you game?
Yes.
Okay, cool. What's one food item you can't live without?
Noodle dishes. I really like Vietnamese and Thai food. I like pad Thai and ramen. So any Asian noodle dish, I am game for it.
Oh, I love Asian noodles. In fact, it reminds me, we're both here in Kansas City. Have you ever been to Blue Koi?
Yes, I love they have a seafood soup that I love there with the clear noodles.
Oh, those clear, I think they call them bee noodles.
Yes,
I love those noodles. We're going to have to go there one of these days, I think.
for sure. Love that.
Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone?
Instagram and Google Analytics. I think I check both of those on my phone pretty regularly throughout
Okay,
the day.
newsflash. I did not know that Google Analytics has
An app?
an app.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't have all of the functionality. Like, I don't think I can get into my search console from there, but I like to look at it to look at my real time and then even just my total views of posts for the day. Like, it'll show you maybe your top 10 or 15 with the numbers, and it'll also show you how many views you've had for the day. And so I feel like I'm always looking at the real time
Okay,
to see that.
Brandi, I just have to talk to you because I think a lot of people would do that and they would feel like stressed out.
Don't do it. Everybody out there, do not do what I'm doing, because what I'll do is on Sunday is when I normally post my Facebook videos. And Sunday is usually the day that I don't vlog. I go out to brunch with friends. And so I'll post the videos on Facebook. And then as soon as I get to the restaurant, I'm checking my phone to see if people are on the site in real time and how it's responding. And so I won't look the entire time, but I will peek in and look and see how it's doing. So yes.
But I imagine, though, that you don't let yourself react emotionally to what's happening, or do
Oh,
you?
no, not like I'm not sad if things aren't going on, but if things are going really well, I will maybe celebrate.
I like it. So if it's not going well, it's not as if you're going to get stressed out about it. But if it's going great, you'll have another glass of champagne or something.
Exactly. One more mimosa for everyone.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so you said Google Analytics. What was the other app?
Instagram.
Oh, Instagram.
Yeah,
Yes, of
I'm always
course.
on there recording a story or posting something. So I
Oh,
have to say
that's
that.
good. I always feel a little confused about stories. Like I never know if it's too much or too little to be sharing on stories. Like if I know that that's another place where you can add value for your users, and I guess for them to see that you're going out to eat and what the food is that you picked. That's probably kind of cool for them, huh?
Yes, and I think it works well for me. Like I'll hear some bloggers say how curated their Instagram is, and they only share their
Yes.
food photos because if a brand's coming to look at your
Yes.
page, they want to know that's what you're about. And I post a ton of food, but I also post just regular lifestyle stuff and what I'm up to. I just feel like it just keeps me authentic, and people can see I'm a real person. I'm not just this person taking pictures of food and putting them up on a website every single day. I'm
That's
actually
so
someone
true.
that's doing the same stuff that they're doing. And so I've just kind of opted to also make it a little personal.
Yes, and to be honest, I kind of grow weary of the totally curated posts anyway. So I love that Instagram stories makes things feel more real.
Yes, I do like that about it as well.
So I can't even imagine that you have any time left over in your schedule, but do you have any time for TV? And if you do, what's your favorite show?
Oh, How to Get Away with Murder. It comes
I've
on ABC on
uh-huh.
Thursdays. And so every week, and for the last 5 years, even when I had a job that didn't allow any work life balance, one of my close friends who lives in town, her parents and I, we get together every Thursday and we watch Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. And we order takeout, and it's always been our thing every single
Oh,
Thursday. And How to Get Away with Murder comes on at 9, and I'm usually in bed at 9:45, and so I typically fall asleep during the episode, but I will watch it the next day. But yeah, that's my
you can watch
favorite
the
show.
ending the next day.
Yeah, I'll come back home from work and I'll get on Hulu and I'll replay the last 30 minutes. It's like a running joke because I wake up at 4 a.m. I cannot stay awake past 9. It's so hard, but I try.
But you get up so early.
I do.
Do you have to set the alarm to get up that early, or is it just natural for you?
A little bit of both. I have a 2-year-old Yorkie. Her name's Angel. She's sometimes my alarm clock. I feel like the past week she's been waking up at 3:45. So she's been an alarm clock, but I have an alarm to go off at 4:15, and I work out, and then I start my day.
That's great. I think there's a lot to be said for getting up early, and I don't know. I think you have a greater sense of motivation when you do that.
It really is a great start to the day. I can feel the difference when I don't do it. I feel a lot more cranky, and I just feel like that release of endorphins or whatever they call it first thing in the morning, it really gets you kickstarted for the day. I love it. I've been doing that for years, and it's a way of life for me now. It feels so good.
Oh, that's great. So, Brandi, how can people find you online?
My website is staysnatched.com, and I'm on Instagram, stay_snatched, and all the social media channels that Stay Snatched.
Wonderful. Brandi, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me. I had a wonderful time.
Thanks, Marley.
Thanks to Brandi Crawford for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. Be sure to sign up today for the Chopped Academy newsletter by going to chopped.academy and scrolling to the bottom of the page and subscribing. Thanks so much for your support of the Chopped Podcast. Your reviews on iTunes and Stitcher really make a huge impact. It only takes a few seconds of your time, and it means so much. We also appreciate your word of mouth reviews of the podcast, and any emails that you send to me directly or direct messages are also appreciated very much. Please keep spreading the word. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.